friend. Welcome to Romans chapter 16. Oh, friend, if you are still here for this final chapter, I just want to give you a big hug. Seriously, this is amazing. We have gone through what is not an easy letter to study. I think, we probably ought to just, once we finish, rewind and do this all over again. But it has been glorious. We've arrived to the last chapter where we find Paul he's commending one of his workers, and he also has this series of greetings, which Paul often does at the end of his letters. But wow, this one is remarkable. This is quite a list. And friends, it's beautiful. It's glorious in that it gives us a window into the early church. It gives us a window into these people, into Paul's heart, into God's heart, really. So I'm looking forward to this week. With that, let's go ahead and begin by reading today's passage, shall we? I commend to you our sister Phoebe, a servant of the church at Synchrae, that you may welcome her in the Lord in a way worthy of the saints, and help her in whatever she may need from you, for she has been a patron of many, and of myself as well. Greet Prisca and Aquila, my fellow workers in Christ Jesus, who risked their necks for my life, to whom not only I give thanks, but all the churches of the Gentiles give thanks as well. Greet also the church in their house. Greet my beloved Epanetus, who was the first convert to Christ in Asia. Greet Mary, who has worked hard for you. All right, what a good passage. What do we notice to begin? Well, I've kind of already given an introduction. Here we have Paul he's commending someone, and we'll talk about that in the first paragraph. And then he begins this series of greetings. So the first question is, who is he commending? And what does it mean to commend? So he is commending, he says, his sister Phoebe. Here is a woman, and that ought to, I think, at least it surprises me, friends, that here he is commending a worker or a woman as a worker in the church of Jesus Christ, and he has some amazing things to say about Phoebe. Now, what does it mean to commend? To commend is to recommend, to present as worthy of regard, kindness, or confidence. All right, so Paul obviously thinks very, very highly of Phoebe. And, we might ask, okay, how does Paul know Phoebe? Where did their relationship begin? Well, probably when Paul was in Corinth, as Synchrae is a village seaport east of Corinth. If we look that up on our Bible map app, we can find that out. What do we learn about Phoebe from Paul? Here's another question that I asked and answered. Well, first of all, she is a sister. He refers to her as a sister and as a saint. So here she is. She's a sister in the family of Jesus. She is a believer in Jesus, number one. Number two, she is a servant of the church in I wrote out how to pronounce this in the Greek, since I don't know Greek. Synchrae. She's a servant there. And the NIV, if you look that up, uses the word deacon, and both are very appropriate. The definition of it is servant deacon. It's a Greek word used in a general sense and in a specific sense of deacon. It's either used in a general sense as servant or a specific sense as deacon. And most scholars would agree. Like, there is a little bit of controversy on what is her role because she is a woman. But most scholars would agree and land on that this word really is used for Phoebe as a deacon or deaconess, a leader in the church. and in her village. All right, so she's a sister in Jesus. She is a servant of the church, or deaconess of the church, and she is a patron of Paul and many others. So what does it mean to be a patron? Well, this is a female benefactor, a woman who contributes to the fulfillment of a need or furtherance of an effort or purpose, especially with her financial resources. And we know the purpose here is to support the building of the kingdom of Jesus Christ, right? To support the church. And Paul says that she has been a patron to himself as well as many others. And so Paul's work has been supported by Phoebe, and we just need to recognize the importance of that, the importance of her using her wealth, her power, her influence to support Paul and many others. This work, this kingdom building work, these missionary trips could not have been done without Phoebe and others like her who were using, these were the influencers. She was an influencer of her day, and the work could not have been done without her. All right, what else did I note about Phoebe? Wow, many people are impacted by her work, by her giving, by her influence. And I also noted that as a patron, as a woman of influence, she's a wealthy woman. She had a huge household to manage. And we need to think of someone different from, what was I thinking of? I don't watch TV, but like Real Housewives. No, Phoebe isn't an influencer in this way. Phoebe is the CEO of her home and her circle of influence. She is managing a household. She has management skills. She has business savvy. She is using her influence in this way. I wrote down business manager. And if we could kind of sum this all up, we need to understand that Paul trusts Phoebe. Paul absolutely trusts Phoebe. This is implicit in his commendation of her to the people in Rome. Look, she is the messenger of this letter to the Romans, and we've already gotten a sense of how important the church in Rome is to Paul. He is looking to them to be a ministry partner with him. He is looking to them for support. And who does he give this letter to? He gives it to Phoebe. This tells us a lot, friends, about Phoebe, don't you think? It really does. And it also tells us a lot about the role of women within the church, in the early church. Here she has a leadership position. She has an important position, and Paul absolutely entrusts this work to her. And he says, look, church in Rome, welcome her, meaning willingly permit access to one's company. We see this word also in Philippians 2:29. So receive him in the Lord with all joy and honor such men. Okay? So we can apply this to Phoebe. Look, receive her in the Lord with all joy and honor her. She has been a patron of many, and to myself, she is using her influence for the Lord. And so I was thinking about this welcoming into one's presence. Like, it's not welcoming into your presence and then just sitting there and looking at each other. No, this is welcoming Phoebe into their presence, that they might know her, they might see her and hear her and listen to her. She is the bearer of Paul's message. She is the bearer of this letter, and probably has a lot to share that Paul has what do I want to say? Paul has, in a sense, given to her. All right. I love that. I love that. Do you see the window into the early church that we get just from looking at this first paragraph? The second paragraph is similar. We see the series of greetings. That word greet is listed here 4 times. And you know what? I just realized I didn't even look that up. But greet is to, I would say, give them a hug. All right, there's Carmen's definition for today. Greet, give Prisca and Aquila a hug from Paul. Give everyone in their church a hug. Give Epaenetus a hug, and Mary as well. So we could go through, and I kind of did. I made a list of these 4 groups of people that Paul says to greet and give a hug. Why don't I just go through that very briefly? The first is Prisca or Priscilla and Aquila. Where did Paul get to know them? Well, we see them in Acts. Where did I put that? Oh, I think that's Acts 18:2. Paul says, look, here are fellow workers. Prisca and Aquila. Prisca, again, is a female. Aquila is her husband, obviously male. They have risked their necks. They have risked their lives for Paul. And they have greatly impacted all of the Gentile churches because of their help to Paul. And we see their role in the church. It's important. We also see that a church meets in their home. So friends, they are people of influence here. They are using they're believers, and they are workers. They are running for Jesus Christ. And look, something maybe I didn't mention before. Friends, it is a big deal to be given the shout out by Paul in this letter. All right, it's a big deal that Phoebe has these first 2 verses at the end of his letter. It's a big deal that Paul calls out Priscilla and Aquila in this way. It's a big deal that he goes on to call out their church and give, he's calling out their church, calling out his beloved Epaenetus. Look at this. Here's the very first convert in all of Asia. And we can see that's probably happened in Corinth. 1 Corinthians 16:13, we learn a little bit more about that. And, there was something else I wanted to say about that. He just refers to him as beloved, meaning dearly loved and cherished. He has a warm spot in Paul's heart. So even that term gives us a window into the church, the love that is there, the affection that is there, the relationships that are there. All right. And, we might wonder, okay, if Paul has never been to Rome, how does he know these people? Well, we've already seen, we can't know everyone on the list that we're going to see in this passage. And, we don't have much information on Mary, but we do on Phoebe. We have all of this given here, and we also have seen her in Acts chapter 18, and we see cross-references for Priscilla and Aquila, as well as Epaenetus. So, their paths have crossed in a number of ways. But I also wanted to say that Priscilla and Aquila in chapter 18, we see that they had been kicked out of Rome for a while, and they were in Corinth because Caesar Claudius had kicked out all of the Jews. They are Jewish Christians now. They were kicked out. They were in Corinth, and that's where Paul and their paths crossed, and probably a good number of other Jewish people and Jewish believers who had been kicked out of Rome at the same time. So we don't know all of the backstory, but we can do some good guessing. You know what I mean? All right, friends. Main point today, Paul commends Phoebe to the church in Rome, and he greets some people there. He does this amazing shout out to honor some people. How did you apply this today? This is an interesting one to apply. Friends, we're not all Paul and Priscilla's. And, as I thought about this, I took a step back and I asked, okay, Carmen, what is it that you can learn about who God is from this passage? And once again, I see, look, all are welcome. Look at the diversity we see in just these 6 verses. We see women and we see men serving in the church. We see Jews and we see Gentiles. We see people of incredible wealth and power and influence. And then we don't know about some of these others, probably not so much. All right. So there's a huge diversity here. What do we learn about the heart of God? He welcomes all. And then when we believe, he gives us work to do. He allows us the privilege to share in this kingdom building work, to share in his dominion as we were created to do. We can go all the way back to Genesis chapter 1 and see this was the purpose for which we were created, to work alongside God for the glory of his name. So my application today was, look, we're not all Paul's or Priscilla's. Run in your lane, wherever he has you today, in your circle of influence. Wow. Let us run, let us work, let us risk our necks for loving the Lord and loving others by proclaiming his name. And let's enjoy this privilege that God has given us to share in his work, to share in his heart. It really is a joy. So friends, let's believe and then let's support Jesus and the church by the way we serve, by the way we work for God.